I would like to welcome everyone today to the State Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, October 10th, 2023. I would like to ask Dr. O'Shields if he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
If everyone would stand at this time, please. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, and you may be seated.
I would like to ask for all of our board members or speakers to please speak into the microphone so that we're able to accurately transcribe the minutes at the close of today's meeting. And that being said, we will move on to the approval of the minutes. You have before you the minutes for the September 12th, 2023 meeting. Is there any objection to approving those minutes as they are presented? Hearing none, the minutes are approved by unanimous consent. Next, we have the approval of the agenda. We do have a change to amend there. Where it says the proposed amendments to the State Board of Education regulation, criteria for entry into programs of special education.
We just had a fire drill,
Okay.
so this is not our fire drill.
Go to the parking lot across the street. Parking lot across the street. We will return in just a moment. For entry into programs of special education for students with disabilities. And that will be under the public hearing section because we have two different sets of amendments we will do under public hearing today. So hearing that change or amendment to the agenda, is there any objection to approving the agenda with those changes? Hearing none, the agenda is approved by unanimous consent. We do welcome all of you in attendance and those that have joined us virtually for our meeting today. And we, as always, thank you for your interest in the work of the State Board of Education. I would like to recognize the following visitors that we have. The National Prophetess Pastor Delilah White from Alpha and Omega in Growth Church. Thank you for being here today. Josh Malkin from ACLU SC. And then Lisa McClement from OSES. Thank you all for being here today. If there is any news media present who did not sign in, please announce yourself at this time. Okay, thank you. Then we will move right into our State Board Chair Report. And I do welcome you here today. It is hard to believe we are in October. Everything, it just flies so quickly. But I did want to mention that I had such a wonderful opportunity to actually visit Edisto Elementary in Orangeburg County School District this past Friday. I had actually reached out to Dr. Sean Foster because I was looking for a school I could look at for a broadcast journalism program, and it was so wonderful to be able to visit them. I told the students that day I would have to give them a shout out at the next state board meeting. They were so wonderful as they took us around, and we learned so many great things. And I tell you, that is what makes, I think, our state even more special because you have that camaraderie where you can reach out to someone if you are looking for an idea or if you have a program you'd like to implement. And I tell you, I couldn't believe how quick they got us in there. And so I definitely wanted to mention that and thank Principal Eric Brown and Assistant Principal Patricia Hampton and all of the teachers that showed us their BAHA program, which is Broadcasting and Journalism Academy. So I thank them for that. And I think we are so fortunate, and it's so exciting how many wonderful things we have going on all across our state. That's only one example of so many. So it really puts things into perspective and reminds us why we do this work every day. So, but that is the close of my report. And then I'd like to recognize now Superintendent Weaver for her report.
Thank you so much, and there is so much good stuff to talk about today. I'll try to keep this within the confines of the time that we have allotted here, especially after our little exercise outside. Thank you for bearing with us. But first of all, I wanted to start by introducing Dr. Rebecca Gunlickson. Rebecca, if you wouldn't mind standing. Rebecca is our new Chief of Staff here at the Department of Education, and she brings with her just impeccable credentials as an economist, as a data analyst, data visualization. She has worked extensively in positions around the state with the PIBA system, with the Department of Commerce, and I got to know her probably 8 or 9 years ago now when we were working on education, finance, and tax reform policy, things that obviously touch everything we do here in education on a daily basis. So she brings just a wealth of expertise to this agency, and we're so thankful to have her. So thank you, Rebecca, for being here today. And I hope you all will have a chance to get to know her. The second thing that I wanted to touch on was just a couple of upcoming events that I am very excited about. I was interested to see that we have a document in front of us asking us to support South Carolina school librarians. And I'm excited to say that that is exactly what we are doing here at the Department of Education. So this Friday, we have a wonderful training, a statewide workshop that we're doing for our librarians and media specialists. That will be held at River Bluff out in Lexington. And I think one of the most important things that I have talked about here with you all is the critical importance of literacy, especially early literacy. And so the theme of this training is the legacy of literacy. We are going to be featuring an incredible movie called The Right to Read, as well as a number of other courses that they'll be able to choose from. And I believe we're at capacity for that workshop. So we're very, very excited about that, and I look forward to being there on Friday. The second event that I wanted to mention to you all is an invitation to every member of the state board to join us, and this may have already come up, but on November the 8th here in Columbia, we are doing a joint Education Oversight Committee State Board of Education meeting. Again, this is going to be focused on those foundational skills, so this will not replace our official meeting of the state board, but is an opportunity for us to come together with the Education Oversight Committee to talk about the foundational goals that we have for our students and how we in our respective bodies and agencies can work together to accomplish those goals. So we're going to have some wonderful speakers there. Dr. Kamyana Burke, who is really one of the architects of the incredible turnaround that Mississippi has seen in their early literacy. We are going to have Sal Khan virtually, the founder of Khan Academy, to talk about some of the amazing work that they are doing to support math. We know that we're starting to really see a trajectory of progress in our ELA scores, and we need to bring that same focus and attention on the math side of the house. And so it's going to be an incredible day of learning. I hope that you all are able to be there. Again, that's not in place of our regular board meeting, but will be a wonderful opportunity for us to be together with our peers on the EOC. The next thing that I wanted to mention, again, just briefly, is that focus on math. The train has left the station on literacy. We still have a lot of work to do there, but I feel like we're getting good momentum. But math is really where we need to dig in next. And so I wanted to just let you all know that we submitted our first draft of our budget priorities to the Executive Office of the Budget here in South Carolina this month. And the four big themes that I have categorized our budget: safe schools, student success, workforce readiness, and teacher support. And two of the things that I really wanted to highlight to you today is the Palmetto Math Project. So we've had a Palmetto Literacy Project here that I think has really been a catalyst for a lot of the great work that we've seen happen around early literacy. We need to do the same thing for math. And so that will be a big part of my budget, asking for the General Assembly to support the Department of Education in bringing on instructional coaches here at the state level that we can help deploy into our schools that are most in need of support in that critical area of math. The second thing that I wanted to highlight on the budget is what we're calling our Rural Renaissance Initiative for Career and Technical Education. We know that for students in those upper grades, connecting their learning to real-world relevance is critically important. And that's what I hear from business owners as I travel across the state State is that they need students who are prepared to go into the workforce. And so we have to think about how we can create equal opportunity in CT education for students wherever they are in the state. And so talking to our technical colleges, we have been looking at a model of a really exciting innovation that's happening in Georgia, where they are building mobile CTE labs with the latest and greatest technology in them that then can go around to rural communities who can't afford to build a freestanding CATE center necessarily in their backyard. So that's one way that I think we can create parity across districts and ensure that our students are really getting that workforce training that they need. So there's a lot more I could talk about there, but for the sake of time, I'll go ahead and move on. The last thing that I wanted to touch on, Superintendent Stapleton, is that, as you said, it's National Principals Month. And we had the joy today of being with one of South Carolina's principal leaders in Monique Smalls at Kelly Edwards Elementary School in Barnwell. So today is the day that we have released South Carolina's report cards. And in making that announcement, obviously we all know that we face challenges in South Carolina, but I believe we need to celebrate and elevate the successes where we see them. And Kelly Edwards Elementary School is just such a shining example of what I call the power of possibilities. This is in Williston, South Carolina, very rural community, Title I school, I believe about an 85% poverty rating, but these students are literally leading the state in their academic outcomes. And in 2018, we'll give them a round of applause in a minute. In 2018, they were unsatisfactory, the lowest score on the report card. 2019, they moved up to below average. We didn't have report card ratings for 20 and 21 because of the pandemic. When we came back in 22, they had just crossed the threshold of excellent. So they were at 63, but it doesn't stop there. They today are at 71 out of 100 points. They are excellent. And, I love to travel to these schools and say, what is the secret sauce? And what I hear over and over and over and over and over again is that it's three things. It is having a strong principal in that school that is building the culture and the instructional environment in which great teachers can do what they are there to do, and that is to teach. It is giving those teachers high-quality instructional materials that are aligned to the best practices that we know, whether it's in literacy or math, help students learn. And then it is giving teachers the professional development, the high-quality professional development that they need to teach those materials with accuracy and fidelity. And of course, there are many other pieces, community support, parental engagement, that all play a critical role in supporting learning in our school communities. But in my humble opinion, and in what I have witnessed in the schools I've been privileged to visit over the last few months, those are the three things that you absolutely have to be successful. And the amazing thing is we see this growing up in rural communities all over South Carolina. So thank you for hosting us today. And let's just give a huge round of applause to Kelly Edwards. So the last thing I want to do in conclusion is just take about 4 minutes to show videos of two principals of schools that I was recently in. First, Waterloo Elementary School in Lawrence 55, exactly the same thing, principal, curriculum, professional development, and then we'll also see Principal Smalls, who I was able to be with today. So enjoy this video.
Please go to the store to get some milk. Can you sound out that word milk for me?
It's about how they feel when they're here, and we're just trying to work every day to provide the climate that they need to feel safe and to feel loved, and then grow from there. Being a principal means there is a huge responsibility, and because we impact lives every day. It is a commitment, it's a dedication to do what it takes to impact these children because they're that's why we're here. And to help them to know how to cope with things when they face challenges, to know how to, work harder when they need to, and to be proud of the progress that they're making.
I love Kim Penland. She's so sweet. She's very supportive. She actually listens. She will ask for advice. And when you have great admin, it helps the whole culture of the school.
Ms. Penland is, she's easygoing, she trusts her teachers, and she trusts that you're doing what you're supposed to do.
We have the same ideas, we want the same things, and she supports me in whatever I feel is important for the teachers, and it's amazing. She is just the best.
Everywhere you go, every experience you have, everything you do in education is rewarding when you do the work and you see the progress. It is my passion, and can't imagine doing anything different.
I see myself as an instructional leader, whether I'm in the classroom, whether I'm a literacy coach, or whether I'm a principal. Just call me Smalls. And that's the role that I take. I tell the staff I never want to forget how it feels to be in the classroom with multiple children. So I try and stay relevant with them. I try and make sure I stay up to date with the standards. If they need me to come in there and teach, I do it. It's not a position of authority, it's a position of we work together.
Ms. Smalls is just a family first person, and she believes in family first, and she wants us to take care of ourselves and our family. That way we can do our job that we're supposed to do. I mean, she's instilled that in us, and that's one thing I like about it, is having that family first leader.
When she came in, she made it strictly about data. We looked at the kids' data, and she encouraged us to, put these things in place to, move our kids and move our kids. And she encouraged the teachers, and she wanted us to do better. But she was always supportive. She always supported us and tell us how much she appreciates us. And then if we need help, she'll come in, give us ideas, and she'll work with us so we can help bridge the gaps with the students.
She helps build her staff up to a level of high expectations, and she's also, we like to say, she's got your back, and that goes to that family aspect. She's going to stick up for her faculty and staff. She's going to stick up for her kids to the utmost.
We're completely devoted to making sure our students achieve. We have a passion for it. We always operate with a sense of urgency. And I know that sounds crazy, and I know other folks say they do, but if you see us, we do it in everything. Related arts, art, music, PE, STEM lab. You're gonna see the same thing in those classes as you would see in math, ELA. Urgency is throughout the building. You'll see our custodian staff reading with students because we have zero downtime, all hands on deck. You'll see the bookkeeper interacting with students because she knows and values the importance of education. It's everybody involved. No one is more important than the other.
So Principal Penland and Principal Smalls are two of our rock star principals. And how many principals, former principals, do we have sitting around the table here? That's what I thought. Can we give them a round of applause? Happy National Principals Month. And Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Great. Thank you so much. I tell you, it means so much when we hear great news, but even more so when you see it. I love when we can see those videos, and we're thankful to you and your staff for being able to highlight so many of the great things that are going on across our state. I tell you, I know one of the things I tell our staff all the time is we have to be our own biggest cheerleaders, and we thank you for being the biggest cheerleader we have in South Carolina for education, so thank you for that. I would like to recognize Mr. John Tyler for the parliamentarian report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I know what you were all thinking. What does Robert's Rules of Order say about fire alarms?
I
Funny
did
you
wonder
should
if I
ask.
started that.
Section 8 actually allows the chair, under exigent circumstances, to declare without vote a meeting adjourned. Now, what happened that we just endured was a temporary recess because there was actually no exigent circumstances, just some other quirk that we had to deal with. So the more you know. The real comment for the day that I intended to offer was something that is both practical for this room and perhaps the Thanksgiving family dinner table as well. And that's, how do you have a discussion involving questions with 16 of your closest friends around the table? Particularly when it comes to questions and comments. If you have a question or comment in a deliberation portion of the agenda, simply, number one, raise your hand and wait to be called on. I tried that with my uncle at the Thanksgiving dinner table. It did not work. Number two, when you do ask your question once called upon, or make your comment once called upon, please direct your question or comment to the board chair. This will actually not only ensure compliance with our rules, but will help ensure a more efficient and orderly hearing. And that's all we've got for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the tips on what to do during a fire alarm, because I wasn't sure exactly, and I'm probably saying go across the street to the parking lot was not the way I should have handled that. So, but I'll make sure to make notes.
Appropriate under the
Thank you. All right, we do have some individuals signed up for public comment today, so we will move into that portion. I just want to remind everyone who does public comment, we appreciate so much your interest in public education, but we will allocate 5 minutes for comments. And since we're hearing comments for the first time, it is our policy to just accept those as information. But if we have questions or need any additional information, we would contact you at a later date. And we just appreciate you understanding those procedures up front. Our first person is Ida W. Thompson with SCASL. Thank you so much for being here today, Ms. Thompson.
Look at all these faces. Looked at you on the website, but it's good to see you in person. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Stapleton, to all the board members, and to our superintendent, Mrs. Weaver. My name is Ida Thompson. I'm a retired educator, having served 39 years in the public school system at both the building and the district levels. My experience, my professional training, and my certifications are in library and information services, reading, technology, and administration. Today, I'm here to speak to you in my capacity as a 2-time past president of the South Carolina Association of School Librarians. All my professional training, my interactions, my communication, and my work with my students and my families has been based on facts and information that enlightens, that empowers, and engages. And that is why I'm here today, to share some facts and some information relative to the status of our school libraries, our librarians, and SCASL specifically. It is a fact that SCASL has served students and educators for 50 years through strong programs, resources, and opportunities. It is a fact that SCASL is highly respected nationally, as evidenced by its many awards, citations, and commendations and collaborations. It is a fact that data from the Pew Research Institute consistently shows that librarians rank at or near the top of surveys in trustworthiness. It is a fact that the Department of Education has been a central partner in supporting library professional development and standards, a relationship that has been valued and greatly appreciated. It is the fact that SCASL is important and relevant to countless students, educators, to their communities, the community members, as evidenced by thousands of signatures on the petition which you have received today. It is a fact that the Department of Education, as required by the budget proviso, created the Retention and Recruitment Task Force, which requested feedback from educators, which included librarians who gave their honest feedback. It is a fact that this honest feedback, I think, was misconstrued which resulted in the decision to sever the relationship with SCASL. It is a fact that this action, I think, is impeding efforts to recruit and retain quality educators through this action, the opposite of what we want to do as a department, as professionals, and those who care about the future of our students. I applaud my colleagues who are on the front lines every day, working to serve the information needs of students and their school communities. Many of them are working under very stressful conditions. They are targets of unmerited personal and social attacks, and they are having their professional expertise and knowledge questioned. No one should have to work under these conditions. The mission of this department, the Department of Education, according to the website, is to provide leadership and support so that all public education students graduate prepared for success. I infer from reading this mission statement that that leadership and support also applies to the qualified educational professionals in our schools who work with students every day. I call on this board, through your leadership and your expertise, and our superintendent, to exercise both that leadership and that support in reevaluating the department's relationship with SCASL. Thank you for your service, thank you for your time, and I look forward to your response. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson, for being here today, and thank you for your interest in education across our state. Next, I would like to call Patrick Kelly from PSTA. Thank you for being here today, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Chair Stapleton, Superintendent Weaver, members of the board. Good afternoon. My name is Patrick Kelly. I've taught at Blythewood High School for the last 19 years. I'm also Director of Governmental Affairs for Palmetto State Teachers Association. On behalf of PSTA's members, I want to thank you for your service and work to create the conditions necessary to ensure every child in our state receives the education they need and deserve. I come before you today to share concerns about the deterioration of one of those conditions: class size and daily student loads for teachers. When I first started teaching in 2005, teachers with the maximum allowable class sizes seemed like the exception. Today, it's increasingly becoming the norm. In August, PSTA conducted our annual membership survey as part of building our policy agenda, which each of you received a copy of today. In the survey, 9% of our members indicated they're teaching at least one class with more students than is allowed under the regs established by this state board. And 8% of teachers reported a maximum daily load of students in excess of state board regs. These numbers matter for several reasons. First, ever-growing class sizes have a direct impact on student achievement. Now, admittedly, the research on the connection between class size and student achievement is murky, but most existing research is poorly aligned to South Carolina classroom conditions due to the simple fact that our state has some of the highest maximum allowable class sizes in the country. For example, the maximum kindergarten allowable size in Florida is 18 students. In Georgia, it's 20. In North Carolina, it's 21. In South Carolina, it's 30. Perhaps the most famous study on the connection between class size and student achievement is the Project STAR study that was conducted in Tennessee in the 1990s, which showed that class size reduction had a significant impact on student achievement in grades K through 3. In that study, the small classes consisted of 13 to 17 students, and the large control sample classes were 22 to 25, or 5 students less than we would allow in a kindergarten class in South Carolina. In a 2022 survey of PSTA members specifically focused on class size, numerous teachers with maxed out classes indicated that they struggled to deliver the type of individualized instruction their students deserved because of the high student load in the classroom. Larger classes also lead to teacher burnout. That's something I can speak to from experience. As a simple example, this year I have 7 more students in my AP Government class than I had last year. Over the weekend, I finished grading the most recent test, and it takes me about 7 minutes on average to grade the written portion of each test. Aggregate, that's about an extra hour of grading. Spread out over 10 tests across the school year, that's more than a day's worth of work that I will add to my grading load this year. But I got to note that given my part-time teaching assignment, I'm still better off than the average teacher because under state board regs, a high school teacher could have up to 150 students at a time. If I were teaching under that scenario, I'd be looking at 175 hours, more than 7 full days, a full week, just to grade tests this year in my class. In 2022, 45% of PSTA members reported they worked more than 50 hours a week. This year, that number grew to 52%. Those working conditions contribute directly to the state's educator shortages, as evidenced by the 93% of PSTA members that indicated enforcement of existing class size regulations would lead to better teacher retention in South Carolina. Now, I appreciate that reducing or even enforcing class size and max student load regs are challenging in an educator shortage, and it presents a bit of a chicken or egg question. What comes first, more teachers or smaller classes? I will emphatically argue that you have to create the smaller environments first to create the working conditions necessary to retain the teachers we have and to recruit the future generation of talent that we need. For this reason, I'd ask you as a board to consider 3 things. First, please resist waiver requests from districts to regulations that would result in teachers instructing more students for longer hours. While that may have appeal as a short-term Band-Aid for educator vacancies, all it will do is exacerbate teacher burnout and lead to greater shortages than we already have. Second, remind local districts of the regulations concerning max class size and student loads, and then enforce those regulations. Some districts and schools seem to be operating under the impression that the waivers granted after the 2008 recession are still in state statute. They're not in state statute anymore. Greater enforcement is also needed for the model policy you adopted as a board earlier this year for the state's new unencumbered time policy for elementary and special ed teachers. We surveyed our members last month. 14% of teachers that should be receiving unencumbered time under that policy are not receiving 30 minutes of daily unencumbered time per day. And finally, as recommended by the 2023 Teacher Recruitment and Retention Task Force, revisit your existing regs to address areas that are unclear, such as maximum student counts for special ed teachers, and reduce regulations to more appropriate standards, especially in the area of class size for grades K through 3 and max daily student loads for middle and high school teachers. Thank you so much for your time and for your service.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kelly, for being here with us today. Next, we have Janelle Rivers from LWVSC here with us today.
Sorry. We appreciate your service, and we are concerned too about the librarians and your support for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Rivers, for being here. Next, we have Mr. Steve Newsman here today. And I apologize if I did not pronounce your last name right. Okay.
Hi, my name is Steve Newsom. I'm a former public school English and research teacher. I taught for 16 years in South Carolina public schools. As an English teacher, I did want to quickly say that I appreciate Superintendent Weaver bringing up literacy improvement efforts. It's certainly close to my heart. That said, I hope the board will review recent research on the so-called Mississippi Miracle, showing that statistical irregularities as well as fairly widespread testing irregularities, which means cheating, may be responsible for those gains. One thing is when you hold back a lot of your struggling third grade students, they don't count into the test scores that you're using to determine whether your program is working. I hope we'll also review the wealth of research casting doubt on the retention of third graders as required by Mississippi and by South Carolina Reads to Succeed legislation. And I hope that we'll avoid what other states have done in politicizing literacy through one-size-fits-all programs or getting involved in the reading wars, as they become called. Those don't really benefit students, but they definitely benefit vendors of tests and textbooks. I mostly came here today to talk about the libraries, and I think Ms. Ida Thompson addressed most of what I was going to say much better than I can, but I did want to give a brief timeline to add some context to that. As she said, the South Carolina Department of Education has had a nonpartisan, non-political relationship with SCASL for 50 years. In July of this year, the State Freedom Caucus networks began to write letters critical of the American Library Association, which SCASL is associated with, partly on the basis, as they said, of the organization's new leader's sexuality. Shortly after that, a few months later, the Department of Education letter on August 25th read, in part, regrettably, a number of SCASL's recent communications via its website such as the American Library Association's Advocacy Toolkit, in testimony regarding library censorship before members of the Teacher Recruitment and Retention Task Force, and most recently in a letter sent to local school board members, undermined that vital objective. That letter, I think, inaccurately suggests that SCASL has opposed parental involvement. In fact, the organization reiterated its commitment to working with parents in its follow-up letter to the department, which, as far as I know, has never been granted a response. Since the American Library Association has explicitly opposed censorship since before 1939, it seems unlikely that this recent attack on the state's librarians is anything but a politically motivated stunt meant to retaliate against public school librarians who were brave enough to testify, frankly, to the Educator Recruitment and Retention Task Force. And as Ms. Thompson said, I don't know how we would hope to retain teachers if we ask them for feedback and then we punish their association for providing that feedback. It's hard, therefore, to trust that the other proposals for regulations on classroom and library materials before the state board will be anything other than another political stunt. I hope that's not true. But I think that is in danger of continuing to hand powers that should be exercised by local elected school boards in collaboration with parents who live in those communities and other community members who pay taxes in those communities with a top-down and sweeping use of state regulatory power. So I hope as you hear from the public on that you'll consider those. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here today as well. And to all of those that shared during public comment, again, we do appreciate your interest in public education and for taking the time to be here. We will now move on to our state board items and our committee reports. Oh,
Madam
yes.
Chairperson, I have
Miss-
a question.
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Beverly Frierson, of course, a member of this board. And as I listened to the comments of Ms. Thompson of SCASL and Ms. Rivers of the League of Women Voters and the gentleman that just spoke, and as I listened carefully to the presentation of State Superintendent Weaver, especially pertaining to the importance of professional development, my concern is that there's a disconnect between what we saw, that we advocate in terms of supporting our educators, providing that professional development, and this apparent severing of ties with SCASL. And I was wondering if there is a way for these parties to come together. Fortunately, I know Ms. Thompson, and I know that what she's presenting is accurate because I know her professionally. I know Ms. Rivers for the same reason, and I don't doubt the sincerity of Superintendent Weaver as she highlighted the excellence that we saw a few moments ago. And I listened and took some notes, and Ms. Thompson said that part of the problem seems to be misunderstanding or misinterpretation of something that was done. So I was wondering if it's not appropriate right now, if these parties can come together, because I'd hate for us to be going at contra positions when we're trying to work for the good of our public school educators. And unfortunately, I've heard from many librarians also who are greatly concerned about how they are being perceived. So I'll pause now and let you answer some of my concerns.
No. Thank you, Ms. Frierson. You know, when we do the public comment, though, it is for information, just because we want to make sure we don't discuss anything that's not on the agenda, as far as making sure we follow all of the rules we should. I will, just because you were asking that question, see if Superintendent Weaver would like to respond to one of your questions.
Yeah, sure, I'd be glad to. And if the board has not had a chance to see my original letter, we'll be glad to provide a copy of that letter to the board, because I feel like a lot of the concerns that I continue to have about the way that this issue is being discussed in public venues by organizations such as SCASL continues to be really, really concerning to me. I think that we've reached a fundamental decision point in public education, to your point about how do we really create and restore trust in our public education education system. And that's something that I have heard repeatedly as I travel around the state, and something that is very near and dear to my heart. I think we have to build partnerships between our parents and our educators and our community members. And I think part of building that trust is ensuring that we are appropriately evaluating community feedback. And, I'll just be very frank, the letter that SCASL sent to members of local school boards around the state essentially said that we should be dismissing the concerns of parents in favor of what children are saying in either public or private settings. And I have real concerns about any organization that advocates cutting parents out of the process. I think that parents have to have a central voice in what we are permitting in our schools in terms of materials. And so what I can assure this board is that as we look ahead to the regulatory process of what constitutes age appropriateness and what constitutes alignment with the South Carolina instructional standard, we are doing this very thoughtfully. We are doing this in a way that we believe will comply fully with the spirit and the letter of the law in South Carolina and nationally, and that we are doing this in order to ensure that our public schools remain entities that are able to support the pluralism that we all value in our society. We have to have the ability to come together around community standards and community values. And so I think you will see that we take a very thoughtful approach to the work that we are going to be bringing before this board, and that our heart in doing so is really to alleviate the pressure on educators, not to create more pressure. One thing I have heard repeatedly in talking with superintendents around the state, as well as local principals, is that they feel like they've been put in the political crosshairs. And, I certainly am a proponent of local control, but I also know that half of our state education budget comes from the state. And with that investment comes responsibility. So there is state responsibility as well as local responsibility for these materials. It is well within the purview and the responsibilities under state law of this board to advise on the age appropriateness and the alignment with the South Carolina instructional standards. And so that's what we are going to be bringing before this board for your consideration in the months to come. So I hear what you're saying in terms of trying to find a rapprochement with SCASL, but I am afraid that the tenor and tone of their communications on this issue continues to be very adversarial. You can look at their social media feed. You don't have to dig very deep to see that they are approaching this as a very political issue. So I frankly find it ironic that they're accusing the department of being political when we have done everything we can to simply maintain the peace of our schools and to ensure that parents are valued partners in the materials that we have in our education system. So this is a much longer conversation, and one of those things where I think people of good faith can have honest disagreements. But I hope that in my response you hear that my heart is to do what is best for the students and educators of this state, and I would certainly invite SCASL to reevaluate the very political position that they have taken on determining the age appropriateness and the alignment of instructional materials to our state standards.
Madam Chair, I appreciate the time, and I would just like to say I do believe in people of good faith coming together, and this cannot be resolved right now. I'd just like to summarize the fact by saying that the term community has various interpretations, and I would greatly advise folks to talk, because with one side saying, look at what you're saying, the other side saying, look at what you're saying, there's not going to be a coming together. And I would just recommend that there be further communication so that we can move together forwardly, progressively. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Frierson, and we appreciate you voicing any concerns that you have. And thank you, Superintendent Weaver, for being able to answer her questions there. And then in the future, we said there may appear some things on the agenda that we will have more discussion at that time. All right, we will move on now to our state board items and the committee reports. And I would like to recognize Dr. David O'Shields, who so kindly led the Policy and Legislative Committee meeting for me this morning. So we look to you now for that report.
Kindly is a nice way of putting it. We did, and we first looked at a clarification to the proposed amendments to State Board of Education Regulation SE Code relating to the entry programs for special education. In looking at that, though it said originally first reading, what it really was in checking and looking at it was in fact second reading. It was also for public comment. There had been none, and therefore, as a result of it being on the agenda accidentally with first reading when in fact should be second, also with the fact that public comment had been given and that time had expired, that we then can move that one forward. The second amendment that we had was dealing with the operation of public school transportation service, and that was done by Mr. Cease, and should there be any further information, I'm sure he's available. The last is the Florence Public School District 1's request for School of Innovation designation. Dr. Moore, Quincy Moore, brought that forward. It was seemingly exactly what we would look for in a relationship of a public facility, a public education effort, coupled with the McLeod Regional Health Care in providing opportunities and avenues for employment, gainful employment, either through initial certifications, through existing measures for people who do not necessarily need a 2-year or 4-year degree, as well as provide exposure and a jump start to the medical profession. Because it's not just education that's experiencing shortfall. People throughout, the great retirement is upon us, and there is a need for us to be in the trenches working with people. And I think Dr. Moore did an excellent job bringing that one forward as well.
Wonderful, thank you. And if I'm understanding correctly, y'all voted to put that last one for Florence 1 on the consent agenda. Is
Yes,
that accurate?
that is correct.
Okay, great. No, thank you so much. Dr. O'Shields' report serves as a motion from the committee for approval. It does not require a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing no discussion and with no questions, all in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Wonderful, that motion carries. Thank you so much for helping me out this morning as well.
Well, it was a lot of fun.
I greatly appreciate it. I would like to recognize Mrs. Lee now to present the Educator Professions Committee report.
Thank you, Chair Stapleton. The Education Professions Committee approved 2 action items earlier this morning. Item 1 is a new Educator Preparation Program approval recommendation, Presbyterian College, Bachelor of Science in English for Speakers of Other Languages, pre-kindergarten through 12. And item 2 is a new Educator Preparation Program approval recommendation, Teach Florence 1, submitted by Florence 1 School District. The committee heard 2 information items this morning. The first, Professional Review Committee, PRC, Educator Preparation Provider and Program Updates. Information item 2 is Assisting, Developing, and Evaluating Professional Teacher Results for 2022-23. The Education Professions Committee placed the 2 action items on the consent agenda.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mrs. Lee. Does anyone have any questions regarding that report? Okay. Then Mrs. Lee's report serves as a motion from the committee for approval. It does not require a second. Is there any discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Next, I would like to call on Mrs. Delaney Frierson for the report from the Standards Learning and Accountability Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady Stapleton. The Standards Learning and Accountability Committee had one action item, and that was Instructional Materials Advisory Committee recommendations to fill vacancies. It was presented to us by Ms. Chris Stewart, Program Coordinator in the Office of Instructional Materials, Chief Finance Office. The committee placed this item on the consent agenda, and there was no information items.
All right. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions regarding that report? Okay, then Ms. Frierson's report does serve as a motion from that committee for approval. It does not require a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you so much, Ms. Frierson. I would now like to recognize Mr. Walters to present the Educator Licensure Committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had 11 cases on our agenda this morning. The first one was an application for initial certification that was continued for additional information. A second application for initial certification was approved. We had 6 cases resulting in suspensions for breach of contract. 2 cases were public reprimands for breach of contract, and then we had 1 that was a permanent revocation of voluntary surrender for unprofessional conduct. All of those cases were ratified in the full board license meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Walters. I know of receiving an update from Dr. O'Shields, who led the full board licensure committee today, that there were 3 cases that were for consideration, and that resulted in a denial, a suspension, and a permanent revocation. So that is a total of 14 cases that were resolved today. And as always, I know we say it every month, but please know we mean it every month. We are so grateful to the Office of General Counsel for all of the information you provide us so that we can come on the day of the board meeting prepared regarding each of those cases. Thank you for all of your hard work. We appreciate it. All right, the consent agenda has been discussed and action items were moved to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as it's been presented?
So moved.
Ms. Kriminger, I heard you first. Thank you so much. We have a motion for Ms. Kriminger. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. We appreciate that. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Next on our agenda today, we have our public hearings for 2 different amendments. So we will begin first by looking at the proposed amendments to the State Board of Education regulation regarding criteria for entry into programs of special education for students with disabilities, the second reading. And we have with us Ms. Lisa McClement, who is here to share information regarding that. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
I do want
And
to
I'm
just
here at the
note-
right time, the right place.
And I did want to
I
note
had a scare
that-
this morning.
I know, I remember that last time. I did want to note that we have no one signed up for testimony on this amendment.
Great. Well, just for some background, we started this process in our office about 4 years ago, developing stakeholder groups for the 13 disability areas under IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And we had, I want to say we've got probably close to 100 stakeholders. We have 13 disability categories. So we try to incorporate other agencies, DDSN, and other agencies within the state, as well as groups that advocate for specific areas of disability. So all coming together to work on updating our criteria. So then in June 2nd, we turned in our drafting notice, which was submitted to the Legislative Council on June 9th. It was published in the State Register on June 23rd, and it had 30 days for submissions for comments, and we did not receive any comments. Somebody told me, bring in every stakeholder that could oppose you and make them part of your group, and that was a positive thing. And we had our first reading August 8th here in the subcommittee and then in the main board, and passed that first reading. And then The first reading was published in the State Register on August 25th, and that was up, September 25th was the end of that 30-day review period, and we did not receive any comments regarding the first reading of that. And here we are today for our second reading, and what we're asking for is for our regulation for 43243.1 to be updated. We have had feedback from the United States Department of Ed, Office of Special Education Programs, to make some updates. We've had guidance from them as well as research in the field, and just to provide more clarity and support uniform implementation of our eligibility criteria. So that's where we're at, and we're here today.
All right.
Any questions?
Thank you. Do any of our board members have any questions?
I do want to say I appreciate what was done. I looked at it, it had been a good while since it had been brought forward or had been
12
addressed.
years.
And it was primarily looking for updating language and assimilating to the extent possible. I thought it was a well-done effort.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
However many, I can see
It was
why
a
there was no.
large
public-
effort, a
why
statewide
there was-
effort.
Why there was no public comment, because you worked very hard to craft something that was far more clear than what we had before, so thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Okay, you have information before you then, and you have heard from Ms. Mick Clement regarding the second reading of the proposed amendments to the State Board of Education Regulation 43243.1, criteria for entry into programs of special education for students with disabilities. We will now entertain a motion for approval of the second reading.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Dr. O'Shields, for that motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Shore. Any discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor, please vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. Next on our agenda for the public hearing, we will have Mr. Philip Cease come forward. We are looking at the amendments to the State Board of Education Regulations, South Carolina Code 4380, Operation of Public Student Transportation Service, second reading. And then after your presentation, we do have some people present for testimony today on this amendment.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Lady, and members of the State Board. I appreciate y'all taking time today to look at this regulation. In front of you is the amendment that was adopted this morning. Is some background on the underlying regulation. There was a bill that was introduced for the first time this past January in the House. We heard from districts that had two problems with the bill. What the bill did is it required an aid on school buses that were transporting students in child safety restraint systems. The districts had two primary issues with the bill. The first being that by requiring an aid be on the bus, if for some reason a district could not hire an aid or an aid was sick that day, the bus would not run, which would potentially put them in violation of state or federal statutes or regulation. The second issue was a financial component. At the high end, that was over $4.7 million, which it would have cost districts to adhere to a mandate of having an aid on every bus with a student in a child safety restraint system. So what we did is we asked the legislature to allow this to work through the regulation process so we could come work with the districts and come up with a workable solution. The amendment this morning that was adopted does two primary things. First is it requires an aid on the buses transporting students, but also allows districts to continue to run those buses if an aid isn't available, to prevent them from getting sideways with state and federal requirements. The second is it mandates aid on buses with students in wheelchairs. And this is just aligning with what is currently in state code. Bus drivers are not allowed to physically leave the bus when it is running, and you have to be outside of the bus to operate the wheelchair ramp. So it is impossible for a bus driver to both adhere to the law and operate a wheelchair ramp at the same time. So that's the second paragraph of the amendment. And that's pretty much what this morning's amendment did.
Thank you, Mr. Cease. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Cease before we call up those who will be doing a testimony? Yes, Dr. Johnson.
Is there, I'm sure I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway, for additional state funds for these aides? I think when you're saying whether the bus will run or not, I mean, that within itself is opening a can of worms.
Right, and that was part of the district's big issue, is even though some districts are able to pay more than others, they can't find aides, even in raising the salary.
So it's not just the money.
Right, so it's not just the money, and you see it in bus drivers as well. So that's why we wanted to give that kind of option for buses to still run. Mandating an aide and then saying buses can't run is just asking for.
And truth be told, in a district where 23% of our students are identified as special needs, I can say it is very difficult, very incredibly difficult to hire people. And it is not that people are clamoring to come into those situations that often have by themselves extenuating issues and circumstances. So for at least me and the district standpoint, we do run with aides on wheelchair buses. But there are situations where it's not necessarily wheelchair, but possibly restraints that we have had moments that it's been very difficult to try to operate them and find a support aide to go on behalf of the district. So from my standpoint, I think we cobbled together as good as we could.
And we've been trying to work with districts to encourage them to put aides on these buses, and right now, as of our last count, we're right under 20 buses that are running without an aide statewide with a student in a child safety restraint system. So that's it's a small number when you look at the whole state.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Cease? Yes, Ms. Beverly Frierson.
Yes, I was looking at the wording of the last paragraph, first page of this document.
Yes, ma'am.
It's ambiguous to me, and maybe you can just help me understand it. It says a student in a child safety restraint system excluding standard seat belts must be transported on a bus with an aide. Then it goes on to say, if an aide is not available for a bus transporting a student in a child safety restraint system, the bus shall not run unless it would put the school district in violation of federal and state statutes or regulations. Something is wrong about that wording.
Well, so what we're trying to do with this regulation is come up with a workable solution that's as close to the original bill as possible. If we say an aide must be on a bus and a bus may not run full stop, that's it, then buses will not run and districts will be in potential violation of state and federal statutes. So what that second part of the sentence is kind of the pressure release valve to allow districts that don't have an aide to allow them to still run buses so they're not going to violate state or federal statutes.
I understand what the intent is, but I'm an English teacher.
Right.
So in that first sentence, should it be, should be, and change that word in the last, next to the last sentence from unless to something else? See, I understand you don't want to violate the law, but the way it's worded right now, in my opinion, is a problem. And I'm not an expert, maybe y'all just need to look at it a little bit more and work on that wording in that last paragraph.
Right. If the board would like to amend it, that's certainly their prerogative. I can say that our legal counsel, specifically our IDEA counsel, has looked at this and has approved it. So.
And it's what?
Has approved it.
Okay, well, I'm not an attorney, but I'm just thinking about the terms must and should and may and all of that. And I will shut my mouth, but just from my reading, it's ambiguous. And it may need to be looked at again, especially since this is not the final reading of this yet, right?
Yes, ma'am, this is the second reading.
So this is not the final one?
This
It's
is-
just the second one?
This would be the final for the state board.
Well, if this is the final one, I do think that there's a problem with this wording. I understand you don't want to violate the law, but the way it is worded now, I think is ambiguous, and it doesn't really deal with the fact that you're trying to keep the buses from running, because you have a must which is not an either-or situation, and then you have that term unless, which is ambiguous. I don't know if anyone else sees it that way, but I've made my point already.
So in recapping, I believe you were saying that if it had said at the first sentence, shall be transported.
Should or shall, because
Should or
must is not an either-or situation.
Right.
And I also heard what the gentleman, I apologize for not knowing your name yet, but you mentioned
Dr.
in terms
O'Shields.
of the reality, in terms of the problems of getting an aide on every bus, but that must is different from should or shall. And then that unless part is still ambiguous. So if this is the final reading, we need, in my opinion, to look at the wording of that paragraph to avoid some of the problems that we had earlier when it was brought to the attention of this board that the law was not being followed.
No, thank you for stating your concerns. I believe, Mr. You want a brief okay. All right, is there any objection from us taking a momentary recess just so we can check on that and be able to approve that hopefully today with any changes? Any objection? Hearing none, then I declare us in a short recess. We will return for the next part. I know we want to be able to call as well. We have 2 people here to give a testimony today to this. Did you have anything else to share before we do that though,
No,
Mr.
ma'am.
Cease? Okay, thank you. I would first like to call Mr. Robert Grant from Richland School District 1. Thank you so much for being here. And just to remind you, Mr. Grant, we appreciate you being here, but you are allotted 5 minutes for your comments, and we won't necessarily address those, but we appreciate your time.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Superintendent Weaver, board members. I will be much more brief than 5 minutes. My name is Bob Grant, and I serve as the Chief Operations Officer for Richland School District 1. I want to thank you for the opportunity to offer feedback on the proposed changes to Regulation 4380. As a representative of a school district, we can support the changes to the regulation that would require each district to make an effort to place a qualified bus aide on every bus that transports any wheelchair-bound student or any student that requires a child safety restraint system, while still allowing the districts to comply with all federal and state laws regarding the transportation of students with individualized education plans. Many districts already have this practice in place, and finding and employing qualified staff is generally the only barrier to this being a 100% standard. I want to echo what Dr. O'Shields said. In our district, we place folks on our buses, and the only time that we don't is when there might be an absence and we just absolutely can't fill it. We use sub-drivers, we'll use classroom aides, we'll find even teachers. We'll go to every length to find somebody to put on those buses. Our goal is always will be to continue to provide safe transportation services for all students while complying with all applicable state and federal laws and regulations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Grant, for being here today. We appreciate that. We also have Ryan Bailey from SCASA here to speak on these amendments. And again, it will be 5 minutes, and we appreciate you being here today, Mr. Bailey.
Yes, ma'am, I'll be very brief. Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Bailey with the South Carolina Association of School Administrators. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a very brief comment to the Regulation 4380. We support the proposed changes that would require school districts to make every effort to ensure that an aide is present for buses transporting students in a wheelchair or in a child safety restraint system, while also giving the opportunity to comply with federal and state regulations and statutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. We appreciate you both being here and your interest in the amendments and regulations we are looking at today. Okay, do any of our board members have any questions? Do we have a motion from the floor regarding this regulation? Ms. Frierson?
I have a motion, but I'm still working on the wording of it.
So, because you were looking to amend the way that wording is? that you-
Yes, I was listening to the gentlemen as they testified, and I agree that the intent is that the federal and state laws not be violated, but also not to hamper the state board or individual school districts if it's a case of not being able to find qualified aides so the buses would not have to shut down. So I'm just working on the wording.
Well, I know during our recess, Mr. John Tyler, would you mind giving us your legal advice from our Office of General Counsel regarding that wording?
Yes, Madam Chair. The current rule in front of the board as stated follows the typical pattern that we would see in drafting, where the general rule is stated first and then the exception follows, right? So the general rule being that, as it reads, that's pending before the board, a student in a child safety restraint system, excluding standard seat belts, must be transported on a bus with an aide. That would be the general rule. Then following would be an exception, right? If an aide is not available for a bus transporting a student in a child safety restraint system, the bus shall not run unless it would put the school district in violation of federal and state statutes or regulations. So that flipping those sentences around or doing something differently there could certainly change the meaning of the what's intended to be accomplished here. So depending on how the board may wish to amend it, I'd be happy to further weigh in.
Ms. Frierson, just to return to what you were saying, did you have a proposed way you were hoping to amend that language?
Well, it starts like this. It is the goal of the State Board of Education to comply with the federal and state statutes with regard to child safety restraint systems, I guess maybe in transporting a child, blah, 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 blah. But I'm just trying to incorporate the fact that, it's the goal to have the aide present. And if not, every attempt, maybe you can help me, gentlemen. What's his name? I'm sorry.
Dr. Hannon.
Maybe he can help with that last part.
Mr. Tyler, did you have further comment?
And from a more of a parliamentarian moment, I believe the appropriate time to make a motion to amend would be if there's got to be a question to be considered before the board, and there's not been
Right.
there's not a motion to approve at this point the current, or a motion to adopt the current regulation. And so that would, from a parliamentarian standpoint, we do need to have a question before the board.
So
Okay.
in that regard, I make the motion to approve the amendment to SBE Regulation Code Reg 4380, Operation of Public Student Transportation Services as provided by the SDE.
A second.
So we have a motion from Dr. O'Shields and a second from Ms. Allison. Any discussion?
My concern, again, is just the wording of it, so that the ambiguity that we faced earlier this session would not come up again. That's all.
Thank you. Any other questions, Ms. Frierson?
Madam Chair Stapleton, I'm sorry. With all of this going around, I started off this morning asking a question, so I'm gonna see if I can make my question as plain as I can.
Okay.
If I have a child who needs to be restrained and put on a bus, that bus must have someone there to take care of my child. Yes or no?
Yes.
Mr.
Because
Cease, did
these
you wanna
ifs, musts, maybes, and shoulds have totally confused me, the mom,
The
who has to put a child on the bus.
And Mr. Cease will answer that.
Right, for clarification, are you talking about currently or under this new reg?
Under what we're trying to do today, under what we're hearing today.
Yes, ma'am.
Under what we're hearing today, if I have a child on the bus, and we have all of these issues where we don't have anybody to put on the bus to watch the children. If I have a child that needs to be transported to school that's in a restraint, and you do not have someone on that bus, an aide, are you violating a law? is my baby gonna be okay? You understand? I was good until this lust and all this other stuff. Now I'm back to where I was this morning.
And I think that there may be some confusion in the terminology. The reference to a child restraint system here is not the child who needs to be restrained in a manner, say, as CPI or something. We're talking about a car safety seat. A child restraint system, we're talking about the car seat. We transport some little ones. And we put them in the terminology from the transportation perspective is a child restraint system, a car seat.
Okay.
It's a car seat. At the first 3 rows in our buses, you can put car seats in for the students who are little. It's not a CPI restraint because the child is out of control.
Right. So with those car seats, if there's not nobody but the bus driver on, the children, we won't be violating anything if there are no aides with these children in the car seats?
That's the intent.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, and thank you for that clarification. Are there any other questions or any discussion? We have a motion and a second on the floor. So any other discussion or questions? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the amendment as it was presented to you, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, thank you. I believe that is reflected in the minutes, but that motion carries. I would now like to ask Mr. Stephen Strother from the Office of Finance to please come forward, and he will be doing a review of the State Board of Education's fiscal year 2023-2024 budget. Thank you for being here today, Mr. Strother.
Thank you all, and good afternoon, Chair Stapleton, members of the board, Superintendent Weaver. I'm going to give you an overview of the budget as it stands through the first quarter, September the 30th, 2023. You should have in front of you 2 handouts. One is a budget overview, which consists of about 1 page, and the second handout is an expenditure detail, which consists of about 4 pages. From the overview, you can see that you have a total budget of $203,010. That's your total budget, and that is broken down into state board operations and educator cases. State board operations is the top line of $171,010, and educator cases is close to the bottom of that report, and the budget there is about $32,000. So the state board operations total budget of $171,000. You have $31,925.64 year-to-date expenditures, and you also have a $13,570.03 encumbrance, leaving a balance on that line item of $93,514.33 in state board operations. In your educator cases line, you have a budget of $32,000 and $828 has been expended year-to-date, but you also have an encumbrance out there of $30,187.76, leaving a balance on that line of $984.24. So overall, your remaining budget balance is $126,498.57. You will also see in that detail section a detailed breakdown of the expenditures as they exist, and they will tie back to this first page. So you can actually see what the expenditures were, the amounts of the individual expenditures, and they'll tie back to this first page here. And that's pretty much a broad idea of what your budget is and what it looks like. I think we actually will, you'll see the next time on your other personnel services, which is your per diem, I think you'll see that increase quite a significant amount to the amount that we had that at last time. So you'll see a little bit of an increase in that $1,500 line item. And that is an overview of your budget. Any questions from anyone?
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? All right, thank you so much, Mr. Strother, for that report. I would now like to ask Deputy Superintendent Matthew Ferguson to please come forward, and he is going to share with us a literacy update and also an update about both Allendale County School District and Williamsburg County School District.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Superintendent Weaver, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I will try to be quick at the end of a long day, but I wanted to start by saying that the letters rollout has started. There were we have nearly 5,000 teachers who are starting their letters journey this semester. Many have already started. We were in a district this morning, and those folks reported that they were excited to start next week. So that is well on its way of getting kicked off across the state. We also have our invitations out to superintendents to begin the second round in January. So we're looking to add another 5,000 teachers in January, and those invitations are currently out there. And if you are a district superintendent or know those district superintendents, please encourage them to be signing up because we are looking forward to starting a new cohort in January. And then the plan will be that in the fall of '24, we will wrap up all of those districts who have not signed up before. Also letting you know, we are working towards wrapping up the adoption process for ELA materials, and it's our plan to be able to bring you those recommendations in December. And so I look forward to bringing you those then. Wanted to also share about Allendale and Williamsburg. Superintendent Weaver co-authored an op-ed with the chair of the Williamsburg County School District Board, Ms. Collins, and that ran near the start of the school. And that op-ed really introduced the idea of the Hope Network and how we were looking to partner at the local level with both the boards and also the school district to be laser focused on student academic outcomes and working to improve those outcomes over this year. Also happy to report that we were in Allendale the week before last, and we had the opportunity, Superintendent Weaver was there, we had the opportunity to visit a high school U.S. history class, and Superintendent Weaver took some questions from those very engaged high schoolers. They put her on the spot. We got to meet with one of the teachers there who was really interesting, second career teacher. He was a former newspaper reporter from the Greenville area who is now teaching in Allendale County U.S. history. So that was a great event. We were able to visit the CP Bing campus where they are looking at opportunities to create a community center there. And it was great to come from the state board and see the Tigersville program in Miss Allison's area and think about all the opportunities that could be brought to bear in Allendale for a similar project. And then we finished the night with a community meeting with the board and introducing Dr. Cave, the new superintendent. So we are starting off the school year working really diligently to get the focus on academic achievement, and that concludes my report.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Ferguson?
I have a question on that.
Yes, please, Mr. Harrington.
Matt, could you tell us if our plan is to get most of the teachers in school trained before we go before the legislature and have them to have that as a requirement for graduation in order to get all the schools of education on board? Or are we working to do the schools of education, get them on board while we are doing this?
Yes, sir. We're trying to walk and chew gum at the same time. So we are working to train the teachers who are currently in districts working in classrooms. And we're also looking at, we actually had a meeting scheduled for tomorrow with both the test vendors for Praxis and ETS testing to look at what other states are doing around the science of reading for a certification requirement. I think that got moved, but we are also looking at that, and we will be coming to you to make our recommendation around a science of reading assessment, which would incentivize the educator prep programs to be focused on the science of reading in their programs.
I understand 18 states have already passed law making it a requirement, so I hope we're not going to be the 52nd state here.
No, sir, and I think there's current legislation that was introduced last session that didn't quite make it over the finish line that would have included that in law as well. And I know that that's still pending, and I'm sure it'll come up in the new session.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Ferguson? Okay. Thank you so much
y'all.
for the information today. Well, regarding other business, I do ask that all board members, please remember to turn in your travel forms to Tracy if you've not done so yet. And I don't believe there's any other business. We do appreciate everyone bearing with us between evacuating the building and having a surprise recess and everything else today. We appreciate you joining us and being here for this meeting. But with no other business, I would welcome a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Harrington. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Okay, thank you, Ms. Slaughter. All in favor, please vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We stand adjourned.